worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Spiral from the Book of Saw from 2021. So as promised, this is a Spiral cast, no longer a Saw cast. This is a new Spiral podcast discussing each film in the Spiral series. Off the bat, what do you think of that title change? Does it matter at all?
Not really. I like that it prefaces this is going to be Saw adjacent.
Sure.
Like just it sets expectations that we're doing something a little bit different, but it's still somewhat related to Saw, which I was initially kind of like, well, okay, because we've really pushed the whole Jigsaw thing as far as we can go, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And then we just kept pushing it.
Yeah.
So it's a chance to open things up. But I still, the Spiral thing is very loose. Like its tie was pretty, there's that one line that the guy has later, that the killer has later about it that I was like, I don't remember him ever saying that.
Yep.
But fine, whatever.
I would almost rather, I get what they're going for, because I feel like if they would have called it from the Book of Jigsaw, that would make more sense from a story point of view. I'm not saying that it has to be this because this is dumb, but literally a book of guidelines that Jigsaw put out for somebody to go from. And I think it would be more recognizable as a branding if it was Jigsaw. Mm-hmm. Spiral's too tenuous of an idea because sometimes I even forget that there's spirals in the Jigsaw movies.
Right. Like they only are in like on Billy's face, basically.
Exactly.
And that's kind of it. Mm-hmm. But I wonder, the last one, Jigsaw really didn't do that well. So they probably weren't, let's not have another movie called that. Let's try to switch it up.
Sure. And so, I don't know. I admire them trying to do something kind of adjacent to Jigsaw at this point. And it's an easy enough concept. We've already seen how many copycat killers in the previous episodes. So it's not that far of a jump to come up with something like this. And I will admit, from the moment that it was announced that Chris Rock was interested in doing it, I was on board. Or maybe not on board, but it was you have my attention.
Right, absolutely.
Those were two, I'm not going to say great tastes that I needed tasting good together, but I'm just saying those are two things that I at least had a passing interest in. And I was like, that's interesting.
Right. It'd be a different thing if it was like, hey, David Spade has interest in Saw. I'm okay. But Chris Rock, okay.
God. I very quickly wanted to do a David Spade impression, and then I remembered nobody has a David Spade impression. I don't think.
You might get people like, oh, can I watch David Spade get tortured for 90 minutes?
Of course.
Sure. I just watched the Grown Ups movies. Yeah. I actually would
this is revenge. So evidently Chris Rock is a big fan of the Saw movies. And he had a take, and as you do, you run into some Hollywood exec at a mutual friend's wedding in Brazil, and you just say, hey, man, I've got an idea. And that guy's probably like, here comes another pitch at a social engagement, even if it is Chris Rock. They set him up with some writers, and they were off to the races. And I don't know. I don't hate it. It was kind of cool to see Chris Rock running around being like a, well put together, suave cop guy type of thing. But it still felt to me overall like a marginally decently better Saw movie with some cooler actors in it. And maybe that's all I should expect, frankly.
Right. Yeah. I knew it was going to be different just as we talked about, with the title. And I ended up getting a lot of what I wanted out of something like this, complaints I've had in the past, but not in a way that I wanted them.
Oh, okay.
I was not particularly a fan of this movie, but I appreciate all these things it tried to do. I just don't think it did them that well.
Right.
That being said, I would not be adverse to there being more of these kind of movies. The more of these spin-offs of there's a world where Jigsaw exists and other people go, hey, that's a pretty good idea. Mm-hmm. Although I think he himself would hate that.
Of course he would.
Because he's like, well, you didn't do that though.
Right.
You didn't go through my machine, which is all he cares about.
True. So. But let's all remember how consistent Jigsaw was in his different moral complications and ideas here. If there's one thing we can agree on, it's Jigsaw's consistency throughout.
Right. But he did, I mean, because he did murder the one guy, test the guy in Saw 3D for, espousing his beliefs without actually being tested. But that was more about lying about being tested.
There you go.
So maybe that's the thing. If you just like, no, I just do it because I think you're cool. He might be cool with that.
Right.
He might like that.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that this is when you have a ubiquitous enough idea that can float from one thing to another and not like another franchise like a supernatural killer or something like that. I think this is an idea that is somewhat ready-made to just be transplanted from city to city or theme to theme or whatever. And I'm not against that. If they keep pumping things out like this, I'll watch them. Now I have a duty to. But
right.
Otherwise, I'm sure I would probably just stream them or something.
Yeah, which will be interesting because with Socks coming out, and because that's specifically because Darren Lynn Bousman in an interview, the big Bouse man is back for this one.
Nice.
He said, like, if it would be a very different movie if I was directing Saw 9. I'm not directing Saw 9. I'm directing the 9th movie in the Saw series, Spiral, but it's a different movie. So since this is separate from the rest of it, it takes place in a timeline where Jigsaw has happened. Since the next one's going to be Saw X, does that mean Jigsaw's coming back?
Sure.
Is it going to tie back into that? Because I didn't mind getting away from it. I mean, there were certain things I miss Tobin Bell, but like they've been shoehorning him in these things for quite some time.
Right.
He said he would come back if they did something like because he's like, actors act, it's a job. I'd totally do it. But he'd want to explore other stories like the origin of Billy. Like we never really delved into that. And it's like, well, we did enough. I don't really, how did Billy lose his hair? I don't really need to know.
Right. I mean, we saw him constructing it or drawing it in that one flashback scene or something like that.
Yeah, he built it for his kid. He drew the trike in Jigsaw, but he built the horrible wooden puppet for his child in 4 or 5.
I don't need the origin. Yeah. Unless Billy talks to him in a funny voice in his head or something like that, I'll take that.
Or there's like a child, like he had a childhood friend that looked exactly like that.
There
with spirals on his cheeks and like that. And like he died and that changed Jigsaw.
Of course.
Because that actually, the initial pitch for this from the writers Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger. They wanted to do a more specifically John Kramer, like further back in his life, because we've been looking back this whole time. Why not go back even further and make this even more inevitable that this was going to happen?
Sure.
But then Chris Rock showed up and had this great idea, and they probably said, look, if we get Chris Rock attached to this, we can get funding so easily and get all these other people involved, because it's an actual actor, not just some no-name, no offense to Coast as Mandalore.
Of course.
But these bigger name people. But Chris Rock had a very particular vision of what he wanted to do.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of back and forth. I think ended up being like 8 or so versions. They had stuff and Chris Rock had stuff, and trying to form that all into a cohesive thing.
And they should expect that, because regardless if Chris Rock is a particularly like horror savant or anything like that, the man knows what he's doing in comedy. And I'm not trying to make the age-old comedy and horror go together type of thing, but like if he's as hard of a worker on his stand-up, he's going to be a hard worker on something else, and he's going to want to make sure that he gets his material across the line. Right.
I mean, he's acted, he's produced, he's directed, so like he knows how movies are made, and so it's not just like some guy showing up and being like, how can I fit my my tight 5 into this scene?
Certainly.
So yeah, I mean, there's bits where it feels like, are we just shoehorning in a Chris Rock bit?
Early on, very much so. But yeah, I mean, one of the biggest differences to this movie, just diving right in, is just the opening scene. We are out in the public on a public street during a parade and all that kind of stuff, and before we get into the action of it, I just got to say my favorite piece of trivia to this was they thought that they had this as a secure location, and they found out while they were shooting that they did not have the proper permitting and all that kind of stuff. So they got kicked out, which is an absolute producer's nightmare. Yeah. And I think I would be the most embarrassed ever if I had to shut everything down. So they managed to edit together a version of this scene that they just kind of got, but I'm sure they would have done more coverage of this scene. So they were just lucky to get what they got, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it works. What they were trying to do, you know? Yeah, two guys having a hat battle and they in a carnival.
Yeah.
And it totally works.
Yep. You always say that, if you thought that you could pull it off, you'd wear one of those nice hats eventually. You think you could, survive a hat battle?
Not with either of those hats.
Right. Yeah.
Because the one guy, the cop, Boz, looks like the costuming was done by young Republicans.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't know, it's too exciting. I see some kind of carnival detective. What is he doing there?
Yeah.
He's wearing the salmon jacket, and he gets bumped by some other dude who's wearing a big long blue jacket with long blue tails, and has another goofy hat with a feather sticking out of it. I'm what's going on with the costuming here? But
yeah,
I don't think I would want to wear either of those hats. I'm not that kind of old and crazy yet.
Not yet. We'll see after we get through a few more of these franchises. Our cop guy he's chasing after somebody. He's in hot pursuit of a purse snatcher, and who the purse snatcher leaps into the sewer. And of course he goes, "Ugh, okay, gotcha." So he goes down and follows him. And immediately I'm on the lookout for some chuds, some Ninja Turtles, some Pelham 1-2-3s down there. Any other sort of sewer-based monster.
His name is Walter Matthau.
Right. And you do not...
He's a distinguished actor, not a monster.
You do not mess with him. So, he gets briefly distracted by a mannequin in a chair and then gets tackled, as everybody does. And a weird pig face guy comes on the TV screen. And of course, he wants to play a game. And this time I did like this. It is you who will get railroaded. Boom. So already, Pigface has a sense of humor.
I had to check this a couple of times because they want to be so far away from Jigsaw that they don't even want the recorded voice to sound like Jigsaw.
Right.
So the recorded voice sounds like a pharmacy menu message.
The 3 train is arriving in 2 minutes. It is up to you to decide if this will be your final stop.
It just sounds like an auto menu. And I was and it sounds so different from everything else. I was did something happen where this was a temp track and this should not have been released? And so I'm looking online and I'm seeing clips and it's that one. And in fact, they decided on that one basically 2 days before the final mix was done.
Goodness.
Probably one of the last decisions they made. I mean, I doubt they were okay, now let's worry about the sound of this thing. It's probably been back and forth. But it's just not scary or menacing or builds any tension at all. It just sounds like he's on hold.
Right.
And it
I know what they're going for, that weird kind of the horror of something normal almost.
Yeah.
But you're right. It didn't really translate much at all.
And I think that is indicative of my larger issue with the killer and his behavior in general. Okay. I think they tried to go for the horror of the banal, so to speak. That feels more tired and they didn't care. But
sure.
I don't know. It just wasn't very effective for me.
So our cop who is pursuing the purse snatcher, this is an elaborate one. So this is our first trap. He's standing on top of a box, I believe. And I believe his arms are chained up, but the main thing is that his tongue is in a vice. And it's pulled forward and his tongue is in a vice. And the idea is that he has to tear his own tongue out and fall to the ground before an oncoming train hits him, which is a pretty great idea.
Yeah. Because the whole thing is that this Boz, this cop, has lied on the stand a bunch and put innocent people away or let criminals go. And so his choice is to either jump off the thing he's standing on and hang by his tongue, which will rip out his tongue to escape, or to just stand there and get hit by a train. He does a wise decision of doing both.
Right. I did notice that in this movie. I think it happens a couple more times where sometimes the saw trap wants to have its cake and eat it too type of thing. It wants to allow the victim to get out, to be like, hey, look, you did it, but then also see some splatting. So we get to see the tongue ripped out and the body splat, both.
And I will say, in general, I do like the traps in this one in the sense that they're all very simple. They're not too convoluted. The finger one, not my favorite, but they're generally pretty simple. And the choice they have to make is very simple.
Right.
Although some of the stuff, we're going to do some of the things, particularly with Chris Rock's trap, are based really heavy on wordplay and really dumb wordplay. Yeah. But the thing where it's look, wax is going to cover your face or you can sever your spine. your call.
Yeah.
I like that just that straightforward,
yes,
and very simple.
Not a learning curve on this particular set of traps.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as he gets splatted by the train, we get a title card and hear the absolutely unmistakable voice of Chris Rock. He is a cop discussing Forrest Gump with other cops. So yes, immediately, if you've got Chris Rock in the role, you might as well open up and introduce him in this kind of a way. I mean, why not?
Yeah, he's telling a joke, and he's like undercover.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not cops, it's a bunch of crooks,
right?
And he's undercover, but like they're getting ready to do a heist.
Yeah, and
it's this very Tarantino-y kind of thing.
I thought the same thing.
Talking about Forrest Gump and how Jenny sucks and didn't really love Forrest for all the stuff that he did. And it was a neat throwback. It was like, okay. I think part of, without getting too much into it right now, part of my big problem with this movie is how they handle Chris Rock's character in terms of the overall messaging that they want to do, or like they're trying to say. But there's a chance, Chris Rock just doing a bit fine.
Yeah.
It was funny. It felt very dated. This we're talking about Forrest Gump.
I agree. And also, excuse me, sir, he says that's why we never have a sequel to Forrest Gump. There was a book called Gump and Company. I'm sorry, but
he went to space, I think, in that one, and also had a big dong.
Yeah,
and no one mentions that. No. Chris Rock.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I shouted that out in the theater. I got booed for truth.
Yes. So the gang breaks in and robs some drug dealers in a hotel room. They make it out with a stash of cash, and they change out of their jumpsuits, about to make their getaway in a very kind of fun heist moment type of thing.
Yeah, this was wild because this is a Saw movie, and it's a bunch of like trap music, or I don't know if that's the correct kind of rap, but it seems very that style. It's young nudie.
Yep.
But there's these long tracking shots of them going down this hallway, going to the hotel room where they're busting guys, and then escaping down the staircase and getting to the car. And it was very much more, there was a lot more movement. It was less constrained than your Saw movie. It's typically just you're trapped in a room or whatever. So this is really sort of exploring the space.
Exactly.
And so that immediately was a sign that this was not going to be this wasn't going to be your daddy's Saw movie.
So he's undercover, and a whole bunch of cops pull their guns, and he more so / his gang get busted. And then we go right into a scene. You know it. I know it. I love it. Chris Rock is a loose cannon, and he's getting dressed down by the chief. Always my number one favorite scene in any movie. I knew it was too early for him to get his badge and gun revoked, but I was still kind of holding out hope for that.
I was so excited that you were going to get that, because this seemed like the most likely that was going to happen, in this movie. Because Chris Rock he was doing an undercover sting that no one approved of. He doesn't even work in drugs. He works in homicide.
Right. But
these guys had killed some people, so he was taking them down without approval.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so okay, loose cannon. This is coming. This is same thing where it's too early. Right. He is not keeping that badge and gun.
No, he needs to play by the rules. He needs to be a team player. So of course they give him a partner, a rookie. So I don't know. I was kind of on board with this stupid classic setup, really.
It was a weird thing where okay, so you're going to break away from the Saw franchise by just doing the most cliched 90s cop movie.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Because it even with all the sunlight streaming through the window and stuff like that, it's not fully Michael Bay Magic Hour kind of stuff, but it definitely has a feel of more of those, even Predator 2 kind of thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, just much different. There's not, gone is the greens of the Saw movies, and this one's a lot more warm. And just definitely leans heavy into the cop aspect of it, rather than having the sort of parallel, here's some traps going on too, which overall I liked having. This is one of my complaints of the last few, was having the traps be meaningful to the story that was happening over here, that it wasn't just a separate track that didn't really have anything to do with anything.
Right. Yeah. And I frankly enjoyed the cop stuff in this movie more than I enjoyed the forensic stuff in the other movies, because they always have the police angle, but this is less forensic-y and more just cop on the beat, doing his cop stuff.
Well, and trying to solve a crime beyond just being in a room and thinking about stuff.
There you go.
Strom.
So he gets, Chris Rock gets himself a partner, and we get a little bit of info about how his dad was a fancy chief guy in the past, and he's introduced to this young detective. in training. And the young new rookie has a wife and kids, which of course means he's doomed, right?
Mm-hmm. Because Chris Rock is going through a divorce, and so he gets to give a few tirades about how men and women are different, and your marriage is going to fall apart because women don't understand what it's like to be married to a cop. This is they immediately catch a body. They say there's a homeless guy dead in a subway tunnels. They have to go investigate that, and so Chris Rock is giving his speech while it's going on. And the whole time I'm like, is this going to be like a Training Day ripoff? Because it kind of had that feeling of like,
same thought.
This tough cop who doesn't play by the rules is this rookie, and are they going to be able to catch this serial killer?
Right.
Again, like when they get to the crime scene, they get to the subway, Chris Rock is giving this whole speech about the way women cheat differently than men.
Women cheat in the daytime. You can get away with a lot of shit in the daytime. That's right. You can ride a lot of dick before dusk. Shit, man. I just found out Pilates doesn't even exist.
And it drove me nuts. I'm not going to include this part, but it drove me nuts because he says the joke about like, I just found out Pilates wasn't real.
Yeah.
And then the scene keeps going. Like, that's the end of the joke.
Right.
Why are we still here?
That's the capper.
Yeah. You know, whatever. It just felt very awkwardly done. But again, as they're going down to the crime scene, the camera's following them around a couple of like long tracking shots. Notice again, which again, like I like that they were trying to do something different here.
For sure. Yeah.
Because I think that cut them a lot of slack for a while anyway, for me, in that like, okay, they're not just trying to one for one repeat this, but with someone else.
Yeah.
There's going to be handled a little bit differently. So let's see how that goes. Don't be mad that it's not going to be exactly the same.
Exactly. Right. They find the crime scene, and I'll give them credit on this one. This crime scene was disgusting. There was like slop and bits of body everywhere, almost as if somebody was hit by a train and splatted. This was true post-splat body.
A lot of goopy stuff.
A lot of chunks.
And I like all the physical effects I thought was really gross and neat looking.
Yeah. And they quickly decide that it's not a homeless person, but the body, they pick up the wrist, and the body has a Fitbit and a wedding ring. So it's not the bum they were looking for type of deal.
Yeah, they were wrong. This is a person with a Fitbit. So a good citizen.
Yeah, good citizen. Right. Back at the cop headquarters, what's that called?
The precinct?
Precinct, yeah, the cop headquarters. A package arrives for Rock, and he's got a thumb drive that says "Play Me," of course, and he puts it in a computer. I did love the little joke where he's just like, he puts it into the rookie's computer.
Okay. Whoa, what are you doing? Don't want to fuck up my computer.
That did make me laugh. They hit play, and there's a spiral on the screen, and there's a voice that says that they're trying to reform the police.
To remind them of their oath to the people of this city, one officer from your station refused to be reformed. He will not be the last to play my game.
That's now our big plot.
Yeah, and Chris Rock, his character Zeke, is not popular among his fellow cops because he outed a dirty cop several years ago, and all the quote unquote good cops are mad at him about that.
He's a rat, because they're good cops. So they head to the courthouse, and there's a package planted, and inside is a tongue with a police badge. And they put together that it was the gentleman from the beginning in the bad suit who got splatted by the subway car. In this next scene, rather intense, the case is taken away from Zeke because he and Boz, the dead cop, were friends. Of course, it's a classic. You were too close to that case, Zeke. You can't take this on. And then, but he gets it back pretty quickly, which I was a little bit confused by this. He's taken off the case and he's given the case back, or at least he's like, very quickly makes his case for having the case, and he gets it rewarded back.
The captain, Angie Garza, played by Marisol Nichols, takes him aside, and they have a discussion about the Rock. Chris Rock is able to. Man, thank God it wasn't the Rock.
I know,
this would have been so terrible,
insufferable.
And nothing against the Rock specifically, but just his shtick now would not have done well with this. Anyway, But they have a tete-a-tete, and he convinces her that, he needs to work this case.
So Rock goes to Boz's wife's place to pay his respects, tells the rookie to put on a suit. And then starts to ask her, just like saying respectfully, like, I know he's gone, but I got to start asking you questions if you notice anything unusual around here. And it turns out that she saw a black SUV parked outside one night. And and we kind of sidebar, we see the wife that he's getting a divorce from.
Yeah, that was
so
very pointless.
Yeah,
that was extremely
did not need that.
Oh, we learned that he's going through a divorce. Yeah, we already knew that. We knew he was estranged from his wife, and because we don't ever see her again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like, why did we even have this moment? I mean, you got the funny little bit of his partner William Shank, played by Max Minghella, like coming up and being like introducing himself. It's like, man, you just, the worst possible time.
Of course.
They have some kind of fun tete-a-tete. I really don't like Max Minghella in this. I know that, I've heard that name before and people have said that he's good, but I don't know. I didn't particularly enjoy him in this.
Yeah.
I also thought it was funny that the Boz's wife calls him Boz. Like, Boz is short for Boswick. Like,
totally.
You're married to this man and you're calling him by his last name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a weird relationship, but okay. It worked for you, I guess.
Makes me wonder about Brian Bosworth's wife. She ever call him the boss?
I think she's contractually obligated to. I think it's in the prenup.
You just call me the boss.
Like, yeah, you call me the boss.
So he goes to an apartment that I guess is owned by his dad, because I guess that Chris Rock had to move out of the house that he shared with his wife into this kind of like loner apartment that his dad owns. And his dad is played by none other than Samuel L. Jackson. And I do think that the first thing that he says when the camera graces his face is just motherfucker.
Yep. And in fact, I guess, according to interview with Darren Lynn Bousman, Samuel L. Jackson was like, you get one. Like, yeah, all right, I'm done. Like, he's a great actor, but he doesn't suffer fools lightly. And I also heard that and we'll get into this when we get to it, but like, he basically took this role because of The Trap. That he's like, yes, I haven't done that in a movie before. Let's do it. Yeah. And I think that's super cool. Cause like, we're not going to meet your quote. We don't know. We're Saw. We can't make a Samuel Jackson, right? But he's like, whatever. This is cool. I'll try this. I'm like, that's a great way to be. That's why I love, like, what's his bucket? The Harry Potter kid.
Oh, Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe. How he's like those kids are set for life.
Yes.
But he's still just like, whatever, I'll be in whatever weird ass movie you want.
Absolutely.
Because it sounds fun to me.
That's great.
I think that's cool.
Totally. Although on the set during this sequence, I did read a little bit about how Bousman he gave Jackson some direction, and Jackson just said, nah, I'm not going to do that. Uh-huh. And then Bousman stood his ground and said, no, I think you really need to do that. And then Jackson was just like, all right, cool. So he was basically like testing Bousman to make sure that he had the stones to kind of like stand up to him. Would I be intimidated by Sam Jackson? You bet. Yeah. But it's a reminder to stand your ground. I mean, not in that gun sort of way, but I mean, to
shoot any actor that disrespects you.
God, that phrase. Yeah, that phrase is so, like tainted now. But no, to, stand up for your artistic idea. If you are in a position to do so, if you're the director of a film, you should probably do that.
And I know that Chris Rock has also said that it took him a couple days to get used to being around Samuel Jackson, feeling very intimidated. But I'm a truther on this.
Oh,
I don't think they were ever in the same room.
Is it one of those editing things?
I think, because, and I only say this because I think the idea was in editing, in the creation of these scenes, was to create, these are estranged father and son, to put a whole bunch of distance between them, because any two shot they're in, they're very, very far apart. And then most of the conversation is just done in one shot. And just either Samuel is talking or Chris Rock's talking. The one time Samuel L. and him are in the same scene, like Samuel Jackson touches him, you can't see his face. He's like walking away. He's like kind of taps on the shoulder, like walking away. And then then later in a flashback, when you're seeing the two of them, Samuel Jackson's way off in the distance, is kind of blurry. So I'm my loose change documentary about how they're never actually in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's stills of them on set together.
Of course.
I don't care. The finished product, those stills can be doctored.
Right.
Follow the money. Who benefits?
Who benefits? Yes. The scheduling benefits from this theory.
Exactly.
The first AD benefits from this, getting the shots for the day.
Because I was just noticing that in their conversation, just the shot reverse shot. I was like, well, okay, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying, that they're isolated from each other. But then I started to think, like, are they even like together?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know that was a big complaint about that new movie Ghosted or whatever that came out with Anna de Armas and Chris Evans were like, I don't even think they were ever together on set because I guess the performances are that disjointed. But
wow.
But I will say also that Samuel L. Jackson shows up and just steals everything.
Oh, he does.
Immediately. Like, he just is so natural in this movie and like kind of has the little bit of like tongue in cheekness that he's serious, but he's still like, it's a little bit levity. Whereas Chris Rock is really acting and squinting. That's kind of what he does in this movie. And so when Samuel Jackson shows up and he's just casually just owning everything, it's very nice to see.
It's pretty fantastic. Yeah. And I did like watching them act against each other, whether or not they were in the same room or not. I don't know. But they seemed solid with each other. Oh yeah. Then this is where we get the flashback that he turned on a dirty cop 12 years ago.
Because the cop, and this is just ridiculous, because the cop just is interviewing a guy, as you said, this is the cop that you saw hurt a guy and just shoots him.
Yeah.
Like, just okay.
Out of nowhere.
It's not something, where you caught him doing something. The guy just openly just commits murder, no problem.
Totally.
That's life in the Saw City.
We cut to the room that's kind of like late night. You got the cops with all their ties undone at the top and the buttons undone and their shirts and stuff, and they're sweaty and smoky and everything. They're going over the evidence with a team of people, and I just love this one ominous meathead cop that just sort of like circles around in the back, and they just keep cutting to him. It's a little bit more subtle than some of the first early sequels where they try to pin a red herring on somebody. But I feel like this is the movie's red herring because this guy just screams like, it's me. I'm the cop who's doing this.
He's a creepy, muscly meathead. Looks a little bit like Logan from the last movie. But yeah, this also has a really dumb Chris Rock joke, like where because he doesn't, he already doesn't like the rookie, and the rookie's like, hey, I need to call my wife, let her know I'm going to be late.
Right.
My phone's dead. Can I use your phone?
Phone's dead. What are you, a little girl?
Let me borrow your phone. Shut up.
Okay.
What the heck you?
Don't drain my battery watching Twilight.
This movie was like shot in 2019. You're still making Twilight jokes?
Yeah, that wasn't
like, come on.
Rough.
But also what was rough is the line where he goes,
I've been staring at this shit for 5 hours. I don't even look at porn that long.
Why are you watching porno for 5 hours?
Yeah, gee whiz.
That's weird.
That would wreck a day.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you, Sting? Like, stop it.
Right.
That was just like a really okay. Like I said, with the way that they deal with his character. So he's supposed to be this cop that plays by his own rules, but also he's good. But they really code him like a 90s, 80s action cop, where he's like, I'm tough and I'm manly and I don't like pansies. And, and it's like, I don't really like this guy that much.
Yeah. Wears a suit well. So now they've got some surveillance of Boz chasing after, I think the drug pusher's name was Spees. He commandeers a gun and says he's going to check out a building that he knows that Spees is hiding at. And he finds a mattress, and on the mattress, a blanket underneath is just a pig mask. Of course, that means that he is jumped and trapped, and he wakes up in a saw trap. Yeah,
well, this is the officer Fitch, who is
oops, did I say Boz? Yeah. Fitch.
Yeah.
Yep.
That does not like Chris Rock. So Fitch and his partner decide that they're going to go and look at a pawn shops. He gets captured. And
it's funny. I wrote in my notes, kid calls Rock and tells him that Boz was accused of lying. So, I mean, the rookie calls Rock, tells him that Boz was accused of lying on the stand for more than anyone else put together. And that's why his tongue was found at the courthouse. So they're starting to put together a semblance of a motive here.
Yeah, which was like, I don't know why you're explaining this to the cop that worked with him forever. That seemed like an odd thing to do.
Like, wouldn't he know? So Rock goes to his dad's house with some takeout, and my first thought was, gee whiz, like Sam Jackson's apartment is real nice. This giant place. I always notice that kind of thing. But we get some flashbacks of his dad yelling at him, and they both have like young guy mustaches on to show like the earlier years.
So bad. The facial hair is so bad, and like when it's because it's Samuel Jackson wearing this ridiculous mustache. Yelling at Chris Rock has got a ridiculous looking goatee, and when they cut to Captain Angie. I was waiting for her to have a terrible mustache too. But just
perfect.
Yeah, it was so terrible. And the whole thing is that Chris Rock was in trouble for busting Pete, I believe is the guy's name.
Yes, Pete.
For shooting the guy. And Samuel Jackson's like, you know how much shit I'm going to have to take for this. Right. But yeah, but it was things again where, because he gets yelled at by Samuel Jackson and then leaves, and there's a scene between Samuel L. Jackson and Angie. How does Chris Rock know that?
Mm-hmm.
But it's Saw.
Yeah,
everyone has everyone else's flashbacks. Everyone in Saw is a hive mind.
Yes.
It's just partially occluded where it needs to be.
Yeah, just enjoying each other's flashbacks. Another package arrives for Zeke. There's another thumb drive video. It's got on the video is a truck with a spiral and a pig marionette telling them to start pointing fingers at themselves. Kind of a neat little puppet, I guess. I think I liked the puppet less when I looked up what they called it. And they call it Mr. Giggles, I think, or something.
Mr. Snuggles.
Snuggles, worse. I'm beyond tired of the cutesy as creepy type of motif, and so that's not interesting that you're not edgy.
Right. It's not that cool. It's an absolute slap in the face to the Snuggle Bear.
That's true. That is true.
How dare you?
Yes.
But longtime Snuggle fan. But yeah, it's just like the fact that there was another puppet. Yeah, if you're trying to get away from Jigsaw, just don't have another puppet.
I think that was a Bousman thing. He really was adamant that it needed to be a puppet, because how would we know that it's a Saw movie?
I mean, like the pig mask thing is fine. Like just do that again. That was serving you fine. But yeah, the puppet just felt a little on the nose for being like, oh, cops, and I just didn't like that you already did a puppet.
Right.
But yes, they go, they know where that location is.
Yep.
So they go and check it out. And sure enough, he opens up the car door and a pig falls out, a bloody pig.
That made me kind of laugh, even though I feel for the pig, but it's still kind of funny.
Yeah, it was solid. It wasn't pig slop.
Yes.
Like in 3.
Yep. Although I thought that there would be something inside the pig and that they were going to have to cut open the pig, and they, I don't know, missed opportunity or mercy. I don't know which. Yeah,
I don't know. Apparently Bousman had to fight the MPAA a lot on this one, which is not something that we've heard in a while.
11 times.
Which is wild. Mm-hmm. Just that. I don't know. There's maybe I'm just an old man where I'm just like, they let anything on TV these days. But there's some stuff they're like, we're not doing that, because this, particularly compared to some of the other ones they it seemed kind of tame in their gore wise.
Getting the MPAA in a certain mood, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. It's just so arbitrary and capricious. It's dumb. Yeah, so he gets another box, and inside the box is a bunch of fingers. Mm-hmm. But you get a flashback of Fitch, of Chris Rock being in a situation where he's in a gunfight with a guy, and he calls for backup, and Fitch just does not respond.
Right. They do find his body, and then we get back to Fitch's death. So his trap, that we've all come here for.
Yeah, I'm never a fan, and we've talked about this, I'm never a fan of the flashback trap.
I agree.
Because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the same kind of tension in there.
Mm-hmm.
And this trap is very weird.
I like the finger bit, but the rest of it is a little bit convoluted.
Yeah, because he wakes up in this tank full of water, and he's got these weird nets around his fingers with wires trailing off. And then he's got this kind of trap on his head.
Bite down on the device in your mouth, which will start the motor that will rip your fingers away, leaving you free to escape with your life. But if you don't act quickly, all that awaits you is this watery tomb. Live or die. Make your choice.
This movie, the traps in this movie are these first two anyway, aren't clean, because it's tear your tongue out, tear your fingers off. They aren't just sacrifice them and just rip them off.
Sure.
Which I thought was a little bit more, separates it from Jigsaw.
Yeah, the effects of the fingers getting torn off here, pretty solid. And
very disgusting.
I read something with Bousman saying this was definitely one of the MPAA sticking points, and he was bummed because it's just so funny to listen to a horror director or a makeup artist or something get disappointed, and they're like, man, you saw every tendon rip, every bone break. They must have filmed that. I mean, that's the other part that gets to me, is not just what you're not seeing on screen, but when people put all this time and effort into it.
Right.
That could have been a 2-day shoot just for this trap, or 3 days or something like that. And it's just you mean I worked for literally 36 hours and you're whittling this down so far?
Yeah. Which I think going back to Friday the 13th Part 7, Carl Buechler, I think so much of his being upset with the MPAA, it was like these were effects he worked really hard on.
Yeah.
But so that's really cool. And again, like he screams in pain, which causes the machine to stop for a bit. Fitch does, and then starts it up again, but not quick enough because the water hits the thing and electrocutes him. So again, it's the having your trap and eating it too. Or
exactly.
Whatever.
We get both.
So R.I.P. Fitch.
So the next scene is Rock and the kid rookie go and basically torture a drug dealer for a while.
Yes.
To get some info out of him, and they want to find Benny. So there's this dumb, convoluted thing of like trying to gain access to the drug den and such. And then they just go in there and like blast this guy all to smithereens.
Fighting the guy ends up getting, like his leg breaks.
Right.
And then Chris Rock just keeps like pouring alcohol on his leg and then like pressing on it to get information about where this junkie was that Fitch was looking for. That led Boz down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And again, it's this thing of like, well, what a good cop Chris Rock is. Mm-hmm. He is. I mean, the guy's a drug dealer. I get it. That's not great. But this sort of extrajudicial violence, I'm supposed to be rooting for this. Yeah. And we'll save it more for the end, but this movie's view on policing and there are good cops too is very muddled and confused. And there's really like, he didn't want to Bausman has said like, I didn't want to make this overly political film, but I think that's a problem because the movie is. Right. So, but we'll when we get to the end, we'll talk about that more.
Sure.
But like Chris Rock is torturing this guy to get information.
He's just as bad as Batman.
Yeah.
So they go to a church and they see ex-cop named Pete, who holds AA meetings, AA meetings.
Big fans of batteries there.
Yeah. Get all juiced up. So this was, what I do like about this was, just from a production standpoint, this did honestly occur to me when the scene began, and I was just like, wait, AA meetings are supposed to take place in church basements. That's where we always see them, in basements. So they get to the location that day, and Chris Rock is like, no, this isn't going to work. And so he convinces Bausman, he's like, you got to shoot it somewhere else. And he's like, dude, we are on set. We can't just go and secure a new location. Chris Rock just leaves, basically comes back and is like, I got the church down there. It's cool. So I just love the idea that when you've got the star power of Chris Rock on your set, you can just get a new location that next day.
There's pros and cons with that, because I do think that you have that, but then you probably as a director are frequently
getting
how do you not feel undermined? Yeah, where it's like, because he even said that, like in the same interview with Bausman, that he's like, Chris Rock would do a take and then be like, I don't really like that. I need to change my intro on that, and then want to go and do something else. It's like dealing with any sort of big name actor.
I
think there's a certain amount of that. But when you have someone who's like as diehard about this thing as Chris Rock is, where he's like, this was my, like, I kind of pitched this thing where I wanted to play a cop and that was important to him, and had this whole idea that you're the director, but you're also kind of managing his project. Yeah. But then you get those perks of like, I was able to, I'm Chris Rock. I got a location.
Yeah, I can get this. Yeah. So we have another quick flashback, and this is Pete, the head of the AA meetings. This is the guy that shoots the witness that we've been seeing. Okay. So he's out of jail after serving, I think, 12 years or something like that. And he's, got his life back together, and he's helping other people.
Where were you July 4th at 9:30 p.m.?
Really? That's what you're here for?
That's what I'm here for.
Look, some guy came to a meeting drunk and wanted to fight his sponsor, so I hit him. Knocked him clean out. Anyway, the cops came. I'm still on probation, but lucky for me it was O'Brien. He let the whole thing slide because, loyalty.
A new parcel is delivered, and they instantaneously are worried that it might be a bomb. I can't even remember why this one might be a bomb.
Because it's a lot bigger.
Oh, okay.
Just different than the other ones, and so they're real concerned at that point.
So no time to wait for the bomb squad. We got to get right in there. So they try to evacuate and then open up the parcel, and it's just the pig puppet, but it's made out of skin. And one piece of skin has a Charlie tattoo on it. Uh-oh. It's the kid partner.
Yeah. Partner.
And
Shank.
It's a little container of paint, and Rock puts it together. It's from the the Constantine paint store. It used to be a hobby shop. So they go to investigate. It is now a butcher shop, of course.
Of course it is.
You know how, you need a butcher shop, but you know how hobby shops get turned into butcher shops.
Yeah, they have a lot of the same equipment.
Yeah. Nerds needing paint for their miniatures versus hacking up animals.
Because he knows about the hobby shop because it's where his dad used to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so like, okay, well, I know that. And the killer also leaves, some of the killer's notes are very almost Riddler-like, or just your typical serial killer, where it's like, you're really getting under my skin, detective.
Yeah.
And there's a line there. It's like, while you're trying to find more bad guys, I'm going to take your head. And they go to the butcher shop, and in the back of the butcher shop, there is his partner, William Shank, hung up, skinned alive. Mm-hmm. And apparently no one at the butcher shop noticed this.
Right.
Because they didn't get a call from the butcher shop. They just went in, and either that's something that happens there a lot, or just they were off that day. I don't know, but whatever. He's hanging in the back, and they're like, oh, that's disgusting. So you get some flashbacks of the scenes that we've seen with the kid already.
Yep.
To remind you of who he is, I guess.
What is funny, because we haven't seen him in a while, and so that made his death all the more just weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't work rhythmically, I guess you could say. It just none of the pace worked for me on this.
He was not enough of a character for you to really feel Zeke's like despair at this. Like, oh, I was actually opening up to this guy, because that also never really happened. Right. They kind of like, at one point he went, hey, you don't suck as much as I thought you did. Mm-hmm. I guess that's, we're men. We can't have emotions. Right. Israel sort of like hit a wrong chord for the rest of this. Like, it just didn't sit right. And there's a reason for that. But
yep.
And there's another tape recorder there. And
I think this was another one of those MPAA things where they really had to go back and forth on this, because there was a lot of skin peeling and flaying and all that kind of stuff. And a couple of the shots that they had in there were pretty impressive, like full on like skeleton underneath, and it looked pretty great.
And then meanwhile, outside, is it outside where the cop is attacked by the pig mask guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside, a cop is attacked by a guy in a pig mask. And meanwhile, that's happening. Detective Garza gets a text that's like, hey, can you go look up this case file?
Right.
And so she goes down into the creepest cop basement where no one works. Apparently.
Evidence dungeon type of thing.
Yeah.
Yes. She goes to check out on the cold case. Rock realizes she's in danger, but of course, she doesn't pick up when he calls 100 times. The doors close around her, fills up with gas, and of course, Pig Mask Hood guy is in the room. She wakes up shackled to a gurney, and of course, is a tape recorder, and she plays something to the effect of, "You never stick your neck out," and so she has to sever her spinal cord to be released. All the while, burning wax is getting dumped on her face, almost like a waterboarding type of thing.
Yeah, the threat is that this will eventually suffocate you, or you have to sever your spinal cord, which will somehow stop the machine. Which I wasn't clear how that was going to work, but
I had no idea. Yeah,
but as a perk, the wax is going to be just boiling hot.
Yes.
So good luck. Mm-hmm. And sure enough. Yeah, she just gets boiled alive, basically. It made me think a little bit of Tourist Trap, if you've ever seen that.
I have not, I don't think.
It's not a particularly great movie, but there is a extremely chilling scene where the killer smothers this woman with stuff on her face. And it's very long and it's really upsetting. And much more effective than this. This was just kind of your typical sort of, in this, it is Saw. And it's very sort of like just raw, and we're just going to throw this hot stuff at you, and there's no subtext or anything. It's just this.
Of course.
Why have tension when you can just have pain? So she just gets boiled alive, and Chris Rock doesn't show up in time. And it's disgusting when he gets down there and finds her body, like, and he's like screaming about where she is. Finally, they go and find her out, and he like peels off the wax from her face, and it just looks like a Pam underneath.
That disgusting. Really worked. It was really well done, peeling the wax face off.
But then when you see like her face kind of revealed, and it looked a little bit more normal, it was like, okay. But from the far away, when it starts like really peeling away, it was really nasty looking. Very good makeup effect there.
Yeah. And of course, at that moment, I did think, how did Pig Mask get all that stuff down there? But I guess once you find out the reveal and the twist, I guess it makes a tad more sense. But still, I was just like, that's a whole giant contraption.
that no one's down there. And that, I mean, Saw movies don't make a lot of sense anyway, so fine, whatever.
Yeah. Tells everyone to lock the station down, needs to go over the security cameras, and they find out 13 minutes are missing. And Pete had been logging into the server to get at the missing footage. But another cop implies that it was Sam Jackson, and then yells, "You're too close to this thing," which, of course, thank you very much. I needed that. It was too long since he got dressed down by another cop. I needed that.
Because Chris Rock has been trying to contact his dad, Samuel Jackson, and not having much luck.
Right. Yes.
Keeps calling and not getting answers. Can't figure out what's going on. But then this wrinkle shows up that Samuel Jackson may have logged in as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do like. So he goes because it's Pete. He goes to the church to try to find him and gets captured by Bigface. And I do like the way that Bigface captures people is he puts a cloth over their face. Presumably it has like chloroform or something on it, but just their face, being impressed through the cloth is a very creepy look. And I like that they were committed to just doing that same thing over and over again. I think that's not a knock on it. I genuinely liked that he just had this modus operandi. Works. Yep. Which is very Jigsaw in a way. Where
that's
it's
true.
Like, this works. Wakes up. Chris Rock wakes up in. This is where it really starts to lose me because he wakes up in somewhere in a warehouse and he's like handcuffed to a pipe with a hacksaw. He's looking at the hacksaw and then notices a bobby pin laying just right there. So like, okay, I don't need to do this. And then also finds Peter Dunleavy hanging from the ceiling wearing a bunch of chains and such.
Exactly.
He's captured as well.
It did make me chuckle a little bit because he does look at his wrist like, am I going to really have to saw my own hand off right here? And then he sees the bobby pin and he's like, man, for a second there, I almost lost it. But this is the part where we do see Sam Jackson start skulking around another warehousey looking place with a whole bunch of spirals on the wall. And so he's investigating something, but we don't know why, I don't think.
Chris Rock gets, as Zeke realizes it's Pete, gets another, like a tape starts playing. That's like, hey.
When Peter Dunleavy murdered an innocent man, your career was shattered like glass. Can you stand on the sidelines while justice is finally served? There is a way to save him, or you can keep him locked up and throw away the key.
I like this trap in concept. It's this giant machine with a couple of holes at the bottom, and above it is a treadmill, and all these bottles are on the treadmill.
It's like a recycling lab or something.
Yeah, and they fall and they just crush the glass and shoot it out of these holes at Pete.
Right.
But I was kind of annoyed because in subsequent viewings, which is, I mean, it's what this is designed to do. You find out like there's so many lines of dialogue because earlier Pete's like, hey, the bottle will kill you. And it's grief. Like, oh God.
Yeah,
or I mean, even there's stuff they underline about like he's pulling the strings and all this stuff. It's like, it's not the Kaiser Soze moment you want. It's really groan inducing.
Right.
So it starts spitting out glass and Pete turns his back and Chris Rock takes cover, can't get the chains off, then notices a trash can. Oh, throw away the key. The key's just sitting in a trash can. Chris Rock doesn't have to do anything. He just has to put together that there's a key in a trash can. Again, very like Riddler-ass shit. Whereas Jigsaw would be like, put your hand in pig goop at least.
There you go.
To get this key, or like, some whirling blades or something. And then this keeps going and he's too late. He tries, but he's too late to save Pete. Everyone is always too late in this movie.
It does make me laugh though when he's like running around with a trash can on his head. Like it makes complete sense, of course, but it was just kind of a goofy visual.
But then his test isn't over. And he can go face the real killer.
Yes. And it's been the kid detective all along.
Yep. It's been Max Minghella, who's not actually named Charlie. He's the son of the guy Pete shot, the witness that Pete shot. And he watched it happen. Right. Which is a very kind of like slasher movie or like Giallo kind of thing where it's like this one trauma that happened years ago. I feel like changed this kid's whole life. And he's been like doing all these machinations to get in there. And he heard a Jigsaw and thought Jigsaw was pretty cool. There was going to be, apparently they talked about a post-credit scene where Jigsaw was going to give him the puppet. Yeah. But they're like, this is too much. And I do support that because I am tired of like, turns out I've been an acolyte this whole time.
Of course. Yeah.
And while I think Jigsaw's acolytes are really just more about him exercising control. That I do like the idea of the people hearing this and like being like, oh, maybe I could do that.
Right.
I'm crazy enough to make that work.
Totally.
Minghella here really wants to try to do the aloof John Kramer thing.
I think so.
But it just comes off as wooden and not very interesting. It's like, yeah, it's been me. The part where I said it's all about your dad. Yeah, it's all about your dad. Because there's been a couple of mentions of this like Title 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was something that gave the cops additional authority, I think, perhaps in the search for Jigsaw.
Right.
Which, by the way, so you never see Jigsaw is not in this movie, but you do see photos of him.
You see one photo.
So it's a very still for millennium.
Exactly.
It's a very still for millennium thing. There is this horrible movie called Hardwired with Val Kilmer and Cuba Gooding Jr. Where it's this dystopian future thing at the end. Cuba Gooding Jr. is going to go fight the real bad guy, and you see a picture of it. And it's Lance Henriksen. Lance Henriksen is not listed in the credits. It's listed as still from Millennium. It's just a publicity stuff from the TV show Millennium. So they they like used his photo, but Tobin Bell's not in the movie.
Yeah,
but still, he was influenced by Jigsaw. William Shank was, and he planned this all out because these are bad cops, and he wants Chris Rock to be his partner.
Yes.
Because you can help me weed out the bad cops. Because he thinks, and this, I like this concept. He's like,
John Kramer was right. Spiral. Symbol of change, evolution, progress. But why limit that to an individual when you can apply it to a whole system?
Which is like, cool, but you're still just killing individuals. But as a true Jigsaw acolyte, your concept should not make any sense under scrutiny at all. So that tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I know it's kind of an easy way out or an easy concept, but I didn't bump up against this at all, really. Just like, addressing the police force type of like rooting out the bad cops. I'm not saying it was necessarily successful, but I'm just saying like that's an okay premise. For a movie
as a concept, I like it. The problem I run into with this is that the movie is so mush-mouth about it. Is because you see, like, Chris Rock is apparently supposed to be this quote-unquote good cop. But as you said, we've seen him torture people. We've seen him be a piece of shit. And all this stuff. So the idea that there's some good cops, because, again, Bousman has said, like, I didn't want to make this political movie because there are some good cops.
Yeah.
You didn't show it. And so instead, what we're left with is a shrug, is a like, yeah. And this was, without getting too much into it, this is part of my problem with that Watchmen series too, is that you want to just be like, both sides. And it's not really a good answer for any of this, because you didn't, if Chris Rock was more of a put upon guy trying to do the right thing, maybe, but he's a piece of shit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me not want to root for the cops at all. So I'm not sure you did what you set out to do. Shank is like, well, you'd failed that test. That didn't work out, but you tried to save him, so that counts. So let's do the real test. Follow me. And then to up the ante, he calls 911. He's like, oh, there's a crazy guy at this warehouse. Yeah. And fires a gun in the air just to get the SWAT team to put a ticking clock on the whole thing.
I'm gonna say we need a ticking clock. We need potential cannon fodder, but these movies aren't really about that kind of cannon fodder. So yeah, more so the ticking clock for sure.
And he takes him to his real test, which is
Samuel L. Jackson, strung up, looking like a marionette. It does look kind of cool. This is what John was referring to up at the top of the episode, where Sam Jackson's just like, I've never done that before. So yeah. All right. So yeah, Sam Jackson is strung up. It looks like he's also getting drained of blood. We get another one of those villains like telling you how much blood the human body can do without before it starts losing consciousness, like blah, 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 blah. But, of course, Chris Rock is not too keen on this whole last trap, but it is like, what is it? He has to shoot like a target he's to like, let him down.
Yeah, he's like, you shoot me, your dad just dies.
Yeah.
But if you shoot the target, your dad lives, we got to walk away. It's all fine, which is, I mean, there's no time for Chris Rock to think about this, but it's like, yeah, but then my dad knows what's going on.
Right.
So okay. But he's like, I've got a foolproof exit. You can't possibly get me. So, you got to make your choice.
Yeah.
You can hear the SWAT team start to show up outside. Samuel Jackson's like, just end it, man. I'm not doing so hot. They've drained a bunch of my blood. But Chris Rock shoots the target. Yep. And Samuel Jackson goes crashing to the floor.
That's it.
Still alive.
Still alive. And yeah, this is where they start talking about, Article 8, the cops getting really dirty on the streets with the citizens, and it's their ability to like overextend their authority and all that kind of stuff. This is also where a version of the Saw theme does kick in, I noticed. And I was like, oh, okay, we're ramping up to something here.
Yeah, we're hitting the end.
Jackson tells Rock to leave, go running after the rookie. They have a brief fight in the elevator. Of course, as the SWAT team start sawing through the door to save Sam Jackson, they trip another trap where Jackson raises back up. I did kind of like this. He starts looking like a marionette, but one of the strings pulls up a couple of like guns that are hidden and he can't stop it from happening.
Yeah, so, they're just like pipes, but they look like guns. And then the light shut off, so he's just backlit.
Yes, and it looks
so
pretty
there's
cool.
No really way to, there's no way to really tell, like, oh, that's the former chief.
Yeah.
Which they cover, because I was like, we're going to know who he is. But then, boom.
Yeah.
That looks really neat. And I, as a concept, like, I wish they wouldn't have cut back to the pig puppet being like, see how we did this earlier? Do you see that, everybody? I wish they would have just let that lie.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like that as an effect. And they just fire away at Samuel Jackson, and Chris Rock yells no, looks back. There's Max Minghella in the elevator. He gives the shush motion that Chris Rock gave him when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Doors close. So I was like, no. And then it ends. He's just in the other room.
Yeah, that's what I thought
like
too.
It was very kind of like a letdown. It wasn't like, no, you're trapped somewhere or something. It was like, no, he's just right over there. Like,
and you got a whole bunch of SWAT dudes right there.
You got SWAT dudes.
Yeah,
go get him.
Right.
It ended in this kind of like, wait, that's it. Now it would make sense if there was a sequel and it's like, all right, now we got to go get him, and it picks up like right there. But
sure,
which Saw movies have done. But it did feel like a bit of a letdown as an ending.
Yeah, so that does it until, a couple of months from now when Sawx comes out, which, we may have to figure out how to watch that quickly and do another show, just keep it going. But I don't know if this one, if this one's going to be involved at all. They completely just ignored Jigsaw. Yep.
They want to do something completely separate. So why bring that up, particularly when it didn't perform very well? And it wasn't that good. So why not do something else? You can, because you also, since it's Saw, I don't think it's a bad idea to have a bunch of loose threads out there that you can always call back rather than making new ones.
Yeah.
Whether they continue on with the series past Sawx, we'll see. But,
I feel like this information is out there, and I've glassy-eyed looked at it, but I was just like, I'll get to that later. So, like, I think that even Tobin Bell is involved in the next one or something that effect, but I don't.
There's 2 pictures of him in that one.
Right, there you go. Yeah, overall, I don't know. My curiosity for this film was weirdly piqued just because they were trying to do something different. And it was Chris Rock and Sam Jackson. So, of course, I was kind of like showing up mainly for that. But it's just like what I said at the top. It was just like a marginally interesting, doing something a little bit different Saw movie with better actors. And that's kind of all you can say for it.
Yeah, I got what I wanted. Like, Saw was outside for part of it. It was a wider scope of things happening. It wasn't just in a room. It was some better actors. The deaths were more involved in the story. It wasn't just a thing that was happening separately. But it was all just, it didn't amount to much. So I got everything I wanted, but not in a way that I wanted it, I guess. Because it feels like it rested too hard on these like 90s cop tropes that when the point it was trying to make doesn't hold up. Of like, the cops suck, man. This didn't convince me otherwise.
Right. Sure.
It could have been better. So there's a lot of, I think some of it is that near miss that's more frustrating than if it just straight up sucked like Jigsaw. Because it's like, this could have been really good. There's stuff here. And it is also interesting, Bousman wanted to do a different way that he had in the past, working with a different editor. So that's part of it as well. But I think about Terry Gilliam, like watching old Monty Python cartoons and being like, I don't know how I did that. Stream of consciousness, not something I could do. And it's like, were you able to access some of that same stuff? Because I know you didn't want to do another Saw movie, but there were elements of that, and that kind of like that half-assing of those elements felt half-assed,
right?
Rather than like trying to do something else. Yeah. Like it's just it wanted to play both sides, and it didn't really pan out. It goes a little bit lower down, probably on my tier list, but not. It doesn't hit the lows of some of the other Saw movies.
Definitely, yeah. let's honor our dead real quick, and then we'll talk about those other Saw movies. Detective Boswick, played by Dan Petranovic, tongue ripped out, hit by train. Charlie Emerson, played by Frank Licari, shot by Dunleavy. Detective Fitch, played by Richard Cipriani, fingers ripped off, electrocuted. Captain Angie Garza, played by Marisol Nichols, suffocated in wax, skin peeled. Pete Dunleavy, played by Patrick McManus, pulverized by glass shards. Benny Wrights, played by Chad Camilleri, killed off screen and skinned. Marcus Banks, played by Sam Jackson, shot by police. And by talking about those other Saw movies, what I mean is we have watched 9 of these now, John. We've got an episode for each. We like to do a little wrap up. So the next episode will be our wrap up. I noticed this is, you take this one way or the other, and we may even cut this out, but they are slower on the download. So do people not enjoy the wrap-ups? I enjoy the wrap-ups. I think it's a nice way to talk about the entire series as a whole, but maybe people just like to get to the next franchise type of thing, and I could get that too.
We heard what you said. Just get on to the next one. But
exactly. Yeah, I think it's fun, especially when you got 9 of these suckers. You know?
And it's a fun way to revisit some of the. I mean, particularly with something like this, you know, some of the shorter ones are a little bit easier to kind of be like, yeah, it was just for the same movie, you know, whatever. Like, you know, Final Destination is kind of, we heard you talk about this, but this covers such a depth and breadth, and there's certain. I don't want to say academic, but a little bit more like thematic things I want to get into that cover the series versus just the individual ones. But
absolutely,
maybe you're not interested in that. I don't know.
Yeah,
let us know either way.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm very curious just out of curiosity, which is about what I was about to say. Right.
Yeah. I mean, or we could just release like a 10-minute version that's just like, all right, here's the kill count.
Yep.
We lost.
There you go.
Here's what we're doing now. See you next time.
Yeah. And actually, we might as well announce what we're doing next time, just in case people want to like order a box set or anything like that and watch along. Because like I've said on social media, we love it when people are watching along with us on these. It's a lot of fun. So we took it to the people. We put up a poll on Instagram. If you don't follow us on Instagram, you should. It is This May Hurt a Bit Pod, I believe. I don't even remember. It's just on my little screen.
I just press a button and it goes.
And it goes.
Why don't you? So make it do that, everybody.
Make it do that. So yeah, we put up a poll of 4 of shorter franchises, which was kind of a necessary thing for us after 9 Saw films. But we had 4 options. They were Psycho, The Omen, House, and Pumpkinhead, all 4 of which I would have been very happy with. But the people spoke, and the people said Psycho. So we are going to do the Psycho franchise next. And I'll be honest, I'm excited to watch like a Stone Cold classic to start off with.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's like with that, it's like, what could we possibly say about it that hasn't? I'm excited to watch it and talk about it though. Like, and who knows? Maybe I'll have some hot take about like this thing's not even in color. It's not worth watching. But anyway, no, and it is amazing that, as I've said before, like Friday the 13th, that first one is just perfunctory.
Yeah.
Like, this is a Stone classic, but we got to get through this so we can watch the TV movie versions.
I mean, that's to be perfectly honest. Like, I've seen the first Psycho many times, and I'm not, some scholar about it, but I love it. But I have never seen 2, 3, and 4, and I'm legitimately interested in watching those. Like, I know it sounds goofy, but I also hear that some of them are kind of good. I don't know what that means really, but I'm legitimately interested in seeing what Norman Bates does for 2, 3, and 4. And of course we will watch the remake, the Gus Van Sant remake. And so I want everybody else to get up their, get their Psycho discs ready. If you got them, I'm sure it's on Tubi because everything's on Tubi. Actually, I think some of these are on HBO. And yes, I refuse to call it Max. So it's on HBO, damn it.
Which one's the one to watch? I don't know.
But I guess that'll do it. Tune in next week and we'll go through the entire Saw franchise one last time, talk about our favorite kills, our favorite traps, our favorite movies, our favorite Jigsaw acolytes. I know which one John's will be. Actually, yeah.
It's Logan.
Yep, that's it. So,
after this movie, I'm like, come on, Logan, come on back. I know I said some bad things, baby, right. But I want your back.
So yeah, we'll wrap up the Saw franchise. We'll head into Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. Never thought I'd say something about Alfred Hitchcock on this podcast.
Following Saw.
Yes.
Second banana to Saw.
Right. But we have to remember, there are a handful of these franchises that started off by your Hitchcocks, your Friedkins, your Hoopers, and those are oddly a little bit more intimidating to talk about in some strange way, But we'll get to them all, of course.
Can we give them the same intellectual rigor that we gave Wishmaster, the prophecy fulfilled?
Well, we can only hope. Yes.
Yeah.
And, to anybody that voted for especially Pumpkinhead, I mean, we will get to Pumpkinhead, Omen, and
yes, the
House.
Real heroes. Thank you for voting for Pumpkinhead.
Exactly. Yes. But thought we'd go in a different direction for the next time. So thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for sharing our Instagram posts and stuff like that. I do hear that that's gotten us a few more listeners. So welcome to all of you new listeners, especially all you fans of the Saw. I'm sure new people looking for Saw casts found us on this, and hope you liked it.
I stumbled on the Saw Reddit. It's still going. It's still going. So it's something while I have my quibbles to this series, it's something that, it's got its fans that are still die hard to it. So that's pretty cool.
I dig that. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see you next week for the wrap up. And then after that, we'll check out Psycho.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone. This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.